While the US and Canada work to protect the Philippines from China, Australia is helping China build missiles and nuclear weapons. A shocking bridge collapse, and Hasan Piker gets an unexpected surprise on his visit to China. And more on this week's China News Headlines. Welcome to China Uncensored, I'm Chris Chappell. Socialist streamer Hasan Piker has been getting a lot of attention for his shocking behavior lately. Yes, I did go there. So did he. But now it seems like the tables have turned, and he's the one getting bullied by Chinese police. Piker was live streaming in Tiananmen Square, praising China and criticizing the US, when Chinese security officials saw him hold up a Chairman Mao meme on his phone. They immediately pulled his entire crew aside and asked to go through their phones. Looking for Xi Jinping Winnie the Pooh memes, I'm sure. Of course, Piker is a supporter of the CCP, and it would seem that hasn't changed, because afterwards, he attended a flag-raising ceremony in front of the Tiananmen Square Mao portrait, complete with kit. And later, he said this.
Because, by and large, especially, the government is aware of, how they are perceived, or how much, anti-Chinese propaganda exists out there. We're white. So, as foreigners in China, at this, national event, rather than an international one, he thought he saw something on the phone, he thought we were, making a mockery, you know what I mean?
Yep, the security saw their race and were worried that they might make China look bad. Total justification to stop them and go through their phones. Best country in the world, right there. And speaking of things China is totally best at, China has had yet another embarrassing engineering failure, this time with the 758-meter-long Hongqi Bridge, which collapsed mere months after opening, which I guess is better than weeks after opening. Progress? Luckily, police had already closed the bridge after cracks were noticed on the surface, so no one was hurt. Besides, the CCP's pride. Oh, just slap some LED lights on and I'm sure it'll be fine. Some netizens are saying that this happened because the ground shifted and had nothing to do with the bridge's engineering. Meanwhile, people with actual knowledge about architecture are saying that it collapsed because there were not enough anchoring pylons in the mountains. The pylons did not go deep enough and they weren't strong enough. So to all those CCP shills on social media who claim that Chinese architecture is actually superior to the West, well, I got a bridge to sell ya. Not long after that, this under-construction tunnel in Sichuan flooded, washing away an excavator. No word on the workers. Hey, America's good ally, Australia? They're supplying China with a critical mineral vital for hypersonic missiles and its nuclear program. They're criminals, I tell you. The mineral is zirconium. And not only are 2 Australian zirconium mines majority owned by Chinese companies, but those mines both export 100% of their product to China. And Australian regulators apparently saw no problem with this. Here's a real picture of a regulator that saw no problem with it. What, it's Mr. Magoo. You kids have no culture. Meanwhile, last month, the Australian Prime Minister signed a $3 billion critical minerals deal with the US to reduce reliance on China. So while the Australian government is making mineral deals with the US, the Australian private sector is selling key minerals to Chinese companies with close ties to the CCP. Obviously, one answer would be tighter regulations, but the defense minister down under doesn't think tighter controls are needed. His reasoning is that other countries can just replace Australian exports, so nothing really stopped the CCP. Which is like saying those bank robbers would have found a third gunman anyway, so it may well have been me. But it gets even worse. Four Corners, an Australian news program, obtained data showing that China is re-exporting some of this zirconium to Russia, helping to fuel Vladimir Putin's war machine. Which has to make Australia feel pretty stupid. They could have just sold it to Russia directly. Think of all the profits they're losing. Since the Ukraine war began, Chinese zirconium exports to Russia have surged 300%, and some of that is coming from the company that owns one of Australia's zirconium mines. So Australia is sanctioning Russia, but also indirectly helping them. But Australia isn't the only US ally helping China, because according to US intelligence from the Biden era, China upgraded its PL-15 and PL-17 missiles using technology from the United Arab Emirates. Now, once again, this is not so much about the UAE government betraying the US as it is about the private sector. It was the AI flagship company G42 that gave the technology to Chinese telecom giant Huawei, presumably for an enormous amount of something in return. But since there is no such thing as the private sector in China, the technology ended up in PLA missiles. No surprise there, and those missiles ended up being used by Pakistan in the clashes with India this past spring. With friends like these, who needs enemies? Trying to murder you with weapons from your friends. U.S. officials have debated whether or not the UAE government knew about the extent of this help or was involved, and gave a sharp warning to the UAE after learning about G42's entanglement with Huawei, which is just a step up from a strongly worded letter, which I guess can also be sharp if someone got a paper cut from it. But on top of that, the UAE has also reportedly purchased Chinese drones for the Rapid Support Forces, or RSF, its controversial proxy in the ongoing Sudanese civil war. I swear, all problems in the world tie back to the CCP. U.S. Secretary of War Pete Hegseth is seeking a reboot of U.S.-China military hotlines. Hegseth met with his Chinese counterpart, Admiral Dong Jun, and claims that both sides want to increase communication to avoid misunderstandings or escalation. At this point, I feel like talks with China have been unsuccessfully attempted more than communism. But hey, maybe he'll finally be the one to do it right. Hegseth also stressed that the two sides agreed that peace, stability, and good relations are the best path for their two strong and great countries, and concluded by saying, "God bless both China and the USA," which, considering they're godless atheists, is going to be pretty hard for the man upstairs to do. Also, he's probably not the biggest fan of that whole genocide thing. But don't think that means Hegseth is going soft, because in the meeting with Dong, Hegseth brought up concerns about the South China Sea, and during the same trip, he unveiled a Philippine task force to deter Chinese coercion. The task force will allow the U.S. and the Philippines to improve coordination and strengthen cooperation on humanitarian responses to natural disasters, which, considering the devastating typhoon that just hit, is more necessary than ever. But it's not just the U.S. Canada and the Philippines also signed a defense pact to deter Beijing in the South China Sea. Yeah, watch out, China, or else Canada will get you. Oh, we're screwed. Talks are underway for similar Philippine agreements with India, Singapore, France, Germany, and the UK. Man, it's weird but nice covering talks on this channel that are actually productive. And it looks like President Trump is defending bringing in Chinese exchange students to American campuses. Take a listen.
You've said as many as 600,000 Chinese students could come to the United States. Why, sir, is that a pro-MAGA position when so many American kids want to go to school and there are places not for them, and these universities are getting rich off Chinese money?
Sure. Never said about China, but we do have a lot of people coming in from China. We always have. China and other countries. We also have a massive system of colleges and universities. And if we were to cut that in half, which perhaps makes some people happy, you would have half the colleges in the United States go out of business.
So what?
The age-old response for justifying working with China. But that money, though. Trump went on to suggest that historically black colleges and universities could go bankrupt as a result, and suggested that other countries might also have students spying on the U.S., and then he laid into the French. Okay, everybody loves to make fun of the French, fair enough, and we're overdue to start calling them freedom fries again. But to be fair to Trump, he isn't suggesting that 600,000 new Chinese students should come to the U.S. He's just continuing visas for the ones who are already here. But with the risk of espionage, combined with the risk of TikTok that Trump continues to champion, I do wonder what agreements he and she came to at their recent meeting. Last week, NVIDIA CEO Jensen Huang, who's on his 900th leather jacket and thinking, maybe this'll be the one that makes me look cool, made another controversial and shocking statement. He said he thinks China isn't lagging behind the U.S. when it comes to artificial intelligence, and that the Chinese Communist Party will win the AI race. Well, now he's softening his stance. Huang claims that he only meant that the US and other Western countries were falling victim to cynicism and heavy regulations, while China is catching up due to energy subsidies that help lower costs for local developers. AKA, China sees the damage AI does to the environment and thinks we can damage it even faster. He also says it's vital that the US win the AI race and has suggested that it needs to keep developers reliant on NVIDIA's world-class chips in order to win, which of course would mean ending restrictions that prevent China from buying advanced NVIDIA chips. Surely Huang is saying that out of his concern for the US and not personal profit. Perish the thought. If you think that, I've got a bridge to sell you. Once again, I'm Chris Chappell. See you next time.